The college football treatment.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the college football treatment. Today, probably the most important episode of all of them. We're speaking to players. We're speaking to Kolade from Northwestern Oklahoma State and Jayden Jasna from Arkansas Tech.
They're the biggest episodes we've got, biggest interviews we've got, because obviously the whole series is built up to seeing what players think firsthand. You know, everything we've discussed, even though we had always advanced on, that was more of a sort of committee meeting style episode. This one is how everything we've built up to sort of affected them. So that's what really we're looking to get out of it. Like everything we've discussed so far. I'm sure we'll mention previous interviewees we've had on and try and ask the players for their opinions on what other people have given.
Yeah, I mean, like you just said, Dan, obviously, like the previous interviews we've had linking well with this as well, because obviously we spoke to Dr. Pagan Lorenz, who obviously gave us the backstory of like the psychologist side and how that kind of affects the players and how he's involved with the players. So it's going to be good to kind of get the players' opinions on that sort of side of it as well.
Yeah, so, definitely. Yeah. I think obviously one thing with Jayden Jasna is that he's a barstool athlete. Obviously we are effectively clueless on what sort of benefits a barstool athlete gets, why it's happened, how it's happened. So hopefully we can get some details from him on how he's used his name to get that sort of deal.
Yeah, well, we mainly want to speak about their scheduling as well, because like you said, this is the most important episode, and we want to find out how they're directly affected by sort of just their day-to-day lives, really, sort of juggling the academics and the athletics. So yeah.
I think like you just said as well, the fact that we're college students ourselves, well, we call it uni obviously, but we know how like stressful academics can get throughout the year when you're trying to juggle like major projects, different modules. The fact that they're doing that as well as playing football and possibly training like multiple times a day or week, like it's hard to imagine. So it's going to be good to kind of hear that side of it.
Yeah, definitely. And on that, I think we'll get into both the interviews.
The college football treatment.
We're joined with Lade here from Northwestern Oklahoma University. Thanks for joining us, Kolade. We're happy to have you on.
Man, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank y'all for contacting me and getting in touch with me.
Yeah, no worries. So just firstly, obviously as a student athlete yourself, the scheduling must be quite hectic. Obviously the off season's quite short as well. Did you think that's enough time to recover in that short period of time for the upcoming season?
Well, me personally, I feel like it it kind of just really all depends. Like, for example, let me give y'all an example. Let's take Georgia and Alabama. Both of them just played in the national championship a couple months ago, I think back in January. So we put that, for example, that ended in January, and you got February, March, April, until now. Because some of them boys, they probably don't start spring ball or get back into football probably in March or February, just depending on the schedule, depending on the coaches or what they want to do, the new things they want to put in. So for them, for example, you feel me, they probably get a month off of football and they're going right back into it. So do I say that gives enough time? Here and there, it just really depends on your injury, and it really just depends where you're at, because all the D1 schools, they have top of the line facilities that are supposed to help you recover quicker. So that's why for them, it's really about the school you're at, the facilities, what kind of facilities do they have to help you recover quicker. All the D1 schools, you have most of these dudes who are able to recover in just a month or maybe a couple weeks right after the season ends. So it really just all depends. Just depending on the school you're at, and also what the resources they have to offer, and just a lot of things really that goes into your recovery.
So, in terms of yourself, obviously being a student athlete, we're students ourselves, so we know how hectic schedules are, just academics, never mind being an athlete on the side. Do you think balancing your academics alongside football is healthy enough? And do you think that you've got, like, sorry, I might have to cut this bit, but do you think that there's enough time in a week, and how is your schedule? What's that like?
Well, for right now, if I can give you my schedule right now, it just really depends on the days. So like back then, because we just finished spring ball last weekend, so like really like we kind of like now our schedule is not as much because we got finals coming up in these coming weeks. But before, when we started back in March, I wake up at 4 a.m. We'd head out, then we'd have practice from 4:50 to 6:50 for about 2 hours, 2 hours and 10 minutes. Then from there on Monday, because I don't have class Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so I would go back to my house. I would shower, eat breakfast, go work out at the wellness center. Then just do homework, meetings. It just really all depends on it really just depends on the type of scheduling. But for some people, why they do struggle, like how I did when I first came into college 5 years ago, I didn't take college very seriously at first. Like, I mean, when you're 18 coming into college, you're going to think of it like you just want to have fun, you want to get lit, you want to party, like, I mean, we've all been there before. And I think that's why, like, depending on who you surround yourself around, it really is, that's what's going to make and break you at college. Because if you're really about like any type of sports you do in college, you have to know how to manage your time. It's really just time management. You just got, I'd say, scheduling is good because, like, especially when you're an athlete, you really do need to schedule your time because you need to use your time wisely. Because trying to do it, going with the flow can, because there is going to be times, I ain't going to lie, there is going to be times where I've had to go with the flow because things changed up, my schedule changed. So then I had to, either add something into my schedule or remove something out of my schedule because of football. So what I also had to learn is that it's really all time management. The better you learn how to manage your time, the easier it gets.
So how many sessions do you do a week, as in training sessions?
Let's see, like right now they got them boys practicing because at the moment, I can't practice right now because I'm still ineligible because of me trying to transfer from another school. So I had to sit out this spring. But from what some of my teammates have told me is, I think they got them weightlifting 4 days a week now. So I think that's how they started since January. They've been lifting 4 days a week.
Right. Okay.
So in one of our previous episodes, we spoke to another footballer about the reducing contact in training. As a defensive player, do you feel affected by that, whether it be negatively or positively?
Now, what do you mean by reducing contact? Like, you mean out on the football field or like during the off season? Like could you go into give more details on that?
But just what was it when we spoke about? Was it scrimmages mostly?
Yeah, in the training and scrimmages.
In training, yeah.
There was a NCAA meeting about it at the start of last summer that they were trying to reduce the amount of contact in scrimmages.
Okay, I think I see what you're trying to say. Like, in a way, it's trying to reduce the amount of hitting, like trying to help prevent concussion.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Really for us, for how they did it for the players this season, for this spring, we didn't have as much contact. If I would say, we didn't do that much hitting drills. If anything, they had mostly. I think we did a lot. I mean, we did do team sessions, but not live team sessions to where everyone's tackling to the ground. It just really, I think we only did that depending on certain days. So I think we only had like 2 scrimmages this spring, 2, 3, I'm not sure. But I think do I say, maybe they should tune it down a bit? No, it just really depends on the school and who's really running the show, That's all I can really say for it. But I don't really feel like it's really affected me over the years, besides last year when I got a concussion. But over the years, I've done spring ball at my other schools. I mean, it's not really affected me as much, depending on injuries. But if they're really going to talk about, in the injury in the aspect of it, it really just depends on which school you're at and the facilities they have to help you recover,
Yeah. So as well, in our last episode, we spoke to a psychologist at UCF, and he touched on the fact that the number of psychologists in comparison to the number of players is quite severe. I think he said there was just him having to deal with around 900 players. I do see that as an issue in college football. If you ever not personally experienced it, but know of sort of like examples where people are suffering because the staff aren't there in place to help in terms of mental health.
Okay. I would say, like I've seen it before. I mean, I've seen it before. Like we've had dudes who, who are going through some issues mentally, and like they can't really reach out to somebody because they got nobody. I wouldn't say nobody, but they just don't know who to turn to, or it's like they don't want to put their trust in somebody else because they feel like, because a lot of players, they have a thug it out mentality that like it's just a little bit of adversity, we're gonna get through it. But there's just sometimes that when you're dealing with when you're dealing with mental health, that's something you really need to take very seriously. But like I said, a lot of people don't have really an outlet to someone to vent to, because it's this whole type of norm that you go vent your problems out to somebody, especially if you're a football player, they're gonna look at you as weakness. So that's why a lot of guys just tend to just hold it in and just use football as an outlet to fix their problems, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and then just finally, from like a general football perspective, what's your opinion on players risking like putting their bodies on the line in the pro day and the NFL draft combine? Because obviously we recently saw something with David Ajabo tearing his Achilles at the pro day. So do you think players are taking a stupid risk when they're trying to make it to the pros?
Well, that's tough. To be quiet, in my humble opinion, I would say no, because I really say no, to be honest. That I don't think it's really a stupid risk, because you're trying to basically showcase your talents. Though there's the argument that, oh, we've seen you play on the field, we've seen your film, but yet again we still want you to go to this combine so we can see what you can do. Which I could see why some people would say, yeah, it's a stupid risk. But to me, I don't think no, because this is a chance really to showcase what you can do off the field. I want to say off the field, but not in a game type of situation, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of touch on that same point. Over here in the UK, we actually had quite a big outlet report on the combine a couple of years ago, and he kind of called it a carnival and said that it was like a meat market where they just rack up science, like data and that sort of thing. Do you think that kind of speaks on how corporate the league's become? And in your opinion, do you think it's become more of like a money-making scheme than an actual place to go and see athletes put on some work?
Okay, could you repeat that question again? Like, you kind of lost me a little bit in the middle. Sorry about that.
So in the UK, there's someone that reported on the combine and called it like a carnival, and kind of touched on it being more corporate and just like a money-making scheme for like the NFL. Do you agree with that, or do you think it is purely for players to kind of show their talent, and that's how the NFL see it as well?
I don't feel the combine. I don't really see the combine being a money-making scheme, because like I don't personally don't see it that way. I just see it more as guys who are showcasing their talents to about 32 NFL teams in the league.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah.
That
I think that wraps it up. We appreciate your time, obviously. Good points that we've touched on there. So yeah, we really appreciate that.
Yeah, not a problem, y'all.
Yeah.
Cheers.
The college football treatment.
Okay, so we're joined by Jayden Jasna here. Thanks for joining us, Jayden.
No problem.
So yeah, the first kind of question we'd like to kind of touch on. A couple of our episodes so far, we've spoke about the NIL scheme that was passed in 2019. And it's kind of been a major talking point for us so far. We noticed that you're a Barstool athlete yourself. How did this come about, and what sort of benefits are you seeing from that?
It's kind of like they kind of just like hit you up and be like, "Look, we see you're a college athlete. You got a name to yourself. They're like, come be one of our athletes." And they send you a bunch of links and stuff you got to fill out. So it's not like hard to be an athlete, a varsity athlete, but it's definitely like something cool to be a part of.
Yeah. And do you have to do any sort of things for them, like media posts or anything like that? Or is it just kind of having the link to being a Barstool athlete?
No, see, there's nothing about posting anything really. It was all, you just had to have their at in there and all that. So
Okay. Yeah. And then obviously kind of just sticking with that theme, do you think the NCAA's introduction of the scheme is like a good direction for college players, and do you think that it's a good contribution to the sport?
yeah, I think it's a way for athletes to be able to get their name out there more and connect, even if they don't go pro, they have their name out there with companies that could potentially hire them. So I think that's a really good deal that the NCAA has put on.
So, as you've just finished spring practice, how important is your off-season period, and do you think you get enough time to sort of rest and recover for the upcoming season?
Yeah, I think my program I'm playing in right now, we have a bunch of workouts waiting because we have to wait on our trainer to get out of basketball. So what we'll do is we'll train and work out and get our bodies right for spring practices. And then we got 15 practices of that, getting ready for the season. And we just run plays and put in install, and we get ready to go win 10 games a season.
So when you're actually in the season, can you give us a bit of a sort of like a run through how you balance your academics and your athletics? Like, how hard is it to actually juggle them both?
It's a tough job for sure. We have this thing set in place where our coach, we have one designated coach that makes sure all of our classes we're getting passed, and we all start practice about 2:00 in the afternoon. So they schedule all our classes in the mornings. That way we can make it to practice, and we have to have a 2-point to be able to practice. So if you have below 2-point, they put you in study hall. And as incoming freshmen last year, all freshmen had to go to study hall no matter what.
Sorry, Dan. Just to kind of so obviously, like during the season, how many kind of practices do you have per day or per week? Sorry, is it kind of like a same schedule throughout the entire season? Is it?
Yeah. So through the season, we have we'll practice every day, and then 3 days a week we'll lift and practice. That way we're maintaining strength and agilities and all that. But on Sundays we'll come in and we'll have lift, and we'll have a bunch of meetings going over film from the game on Saturday. And then during the week, obviously, we prepare for the next opponent.
Obviously, I saw during your spring practice you had a couple of contact scrimmages. How important do you think full contact scrimmage is? But do you think there's a risk of injury involved?
There's definitely
scrimmages,
and a lot of people are opposed to going full speed. But once you're out there playing, it's just like another game. So I mean, injury is going to come with the sport. It's just whether you want to keep playing or not.
Yeah, and then you talk about physical injuries there. We've had a lot about mental health on the podcast, because obviously there's been a stigma around mental health in football and how it's not spoken about. Do you feel like you've got sort of the right support around you at the college to, if you had a mental problem, do you feel like you have people to speak to around the college about it?
Yeah, I feel like there's the college I go to, and most colleges I've ever heard of, they have very mental health in football. That's a very like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a very
untouched subject kind of thing.
And so we're getting asked all the time if we're all right, if grades are, why are your grades slipping, or do you need help? Is there something wrong? There's plenty of help out there. We could definitely go talk to the counselor. We talk to the counselor once a year about grades and about how we're doing in school and how life is outside of football. So
Perfect. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I think that should do it, Jayden, because obviously, like, we don't want to keep for too long.
Yeah.
Just a section of the podcast where we're obviously trying to get people on to ask them questions, and obviously your point of view is massive in this sort of thing because obviously you're dealing with it firsthand. So we massively appreciate your time.
hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
The college football treatment.
So some interesting words there from both guys. I think one thing we want to touch on sort of immediately is how rigorous the training is. Like someone mentioned just before we started recording, the 4 a.m. practice times, if someone wants to expand on that.
Yeah, well, that's the main sort of thing I took from it. The fact that, like we've discussed as well, even at D2 level, obviously we did struggle to get a D1 athlete on, but these lads are still just as dedicated, and it shows the fact that they're getting up at 4 a.m., going, training, coming back to their, as Lade said, coming back to their sort of accommodation, then going back out and hitting the gym. That's before we've even woken up. Like the dedication from them to sort of put their all into it, as well as juggling their academics, is second to none. It's quite like eye-opening, really, because like I said, like the only time we'd be up at 4 a.m. is if we're still coming back from a night out. Like the dedication they've got to be like proper athletes is amazing, really.
It is of a professional level, to be fair.
Yeah,
You'd expect that from most professionals.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like Charlie's just said, the scheduling, the fact that as well, like they're hitting the weight room 4 times a week or possibly more, and that's just in the off season as well. Like, think of what it's like when it's regular season and they're training for the match on Saturday. Then they've got training on Sunday, probably training all throughout the week to prepare for the next game. And it's like they both said, they have to sit in and watch like game tape and things like that. That's not something that you can do over like a half an hour period. That's something that could take all day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's, and as well, the analysis, like sitting down on a Sunday, like you said, and watching the tapes from the previous game, that is something that professional athletes do. That's not like over here. That's not like even non-league athletes don't do things to that extent. It is a really sort of in-depth experience being a college athlete. It's not just, oh, we'll train once a week and play on the weekend. It is their whole lives pretty much are dedicated to being the best they possibly can. And that, carry on.
I think that kind of goes into the fact that like how like in depth the sport is as well. Not just it is a college level sport, but in like the entirety of the sport. Like you just said, Charlie, not non-league players don't sit and watch game tape of their previous football match on Saturday, and neither would Premier League players. Premier League players wouldn't sit and watch like their opposition that they've got on the coming week. That would be down to like the coaches and the manager. That wouldn't be something the players have to do. The players kind of just have to, especially soccer in the UK, it's just kind of turn up to training and turn up to the game. Whereas college football looks like it's you have to get yourself into it as well. You have to watch the game tape. You have to know exactly what to expect and that sort of thing. Whereas normally you'd expect it just to be left to the coaches to kind of do that side of it.
But on the forefront of watching a game, to a sort of, I mean, especially me when I first started watching it, it was just, it looks like you pick it up and throw it, but it is much more in depth than that. Like, we'll talk about this in the next conclusion episode, but Anthony Treesh, the fact like his knowledge on the sport is ridiculous, and the obviously learning the fact that the players have to sort of be at that, have that level of knowledge as well, shows how, like you said, in depth the sport actually is, and how sort of focused they have to be pretty much 24/7.
Yeah, and then just to touch on the academic side, because obviously we asked both players, I think they both brought up a couple of different points. First of all, Jayden mentioned that if you go below a 2 point, I think it's GPA, that you won't be allowed to train. So colleges clearly focus on academics first, make sure the players are up to date with all their academic studies. And if they're not, they won't be getting sort of their reward.
Yeah, he didn't necessarily say like mentors, but it did seem like, reading between the lines, they have like dedicated staff that sort of watch over their progress, like pretty much on a daily basis. And if they do see it slipping, they can sort of catch it early, because these athletes are just important to the colleges from an athletic point of view as they are to themselves, sort of thing. Like we've learned that they bring so much to the colleges. Without, if the staff on the academic front aren't letting them train, then the team will suffer as well. So I feel like the staff have got such a massive responsibility to sort of make sure that they're on top of everything at all times.
Another thing I do want to quickly just pick up on as well is, obviously, last time out we spoke to the psychologist at UCF, and he kind of told us that it's just him looking after like so many players. I think that kind of rang true as well with what Jayden said, where he said that they only kind of speak to the counsellor once a year.
Yeah.
But obviously there's a counsellor there if they do need to speak to them. But it kind of has to be off their own initiative. Like, it's not just they get called in and they have to go for like regular counsellor meetings. It's kind of just down to them, which is kind of interesting, because it's not kind of like they're not pushed into to kind of speaking regularly. Yeah. It's more like if you need help, there's someone there.
Well, when we spoke to Dr. Gabriel from UCF, he spoke about the stigma and how hard it is for a college athlete to come out and speak about it, because they would be seen as weak. And Kolade touched on that as well. Yeah. He's pretty much reiterated exactly what Dr. Gabriel said, saying that like players would find it hard to come out because they don't want to, because they would be seen as weak. And the fact that we've got that from a psychologist and a player shows how bad it really is. Like, if players are there and they can see it firsthand, it must happen quite often. And like you say, the fact they only go in once a year, they could so easily have a mental health issue and then just sort of have to get through it by themselves if that happens on the other 364 days of the year. Like, just one checkup isn't enough.
I know this is a bit of a tangent, but this might just be particular colleges that kind of do it their own specific way, because I'm not sure if either of you have seen it, but there's a Netflix documentary called Last Chance U, and that's based around college football. And they always seem to be in the counsellor's office, kind of just speaking with the counsellor, like keeping a relationship with her. So I'm not sure if it's just particular colleges that do it their own way and kind of just leave it down to the student athletes to take the initiative themselves.
Maybe it's a case of, I think we should probably touch on this more in the conclusion episode, but maybe it's a case of the NCAA themselves having to bring something in, sort of like a scheduling process where once a week they have to at least check in.
Yeah, I think it does come from higher up. Like, there's only so much the actual colleges can do in terms of putting things in place to help them. But if, like Dr. Gabriel said, they've not necessarily got the staff, they physically can't do it. Like, if he is dealing with 900 athletes just himself, it's physically not possible to have sessions once a week for each athlete and stuff like that. Maybe it should come down to the NCAA sort of maybe giving the colleges more staff, or sort of off-site assessments of players or something like that. But the bottom line is that we've found out that there isn't sort of enough help there.
Yeah.
Like, maybe like you say, some colleges do, but that's not really enough. Like, every college should have someone for the players to speak to pretty much 24/7.
Yeah, and I think on that note, we'll conclude the episode there. So hope you've enjoyed. Next episode will be the last one of the series. It'll be the conclusion where we wrap up everything we've talked about. So go and check out the WordPress blog. There'll be some more blogs